couple of things I want to talk about were just a few minutes on the whole Julian Assange thing. Obviously, a ton of people have already commented on this, so we're not going to go into updates as to actual events. More like just more specific description of exactly what's going on. Not only what this guy's about and the uniqueness and importance of what he's contributed, but as to the true nature of the state's infliction upon him. The actual kind of motivations and source. I don't know. What I hear a lot is just a big tamer version of the actual reality of what's going on. Snowden the movie is really good to watch. And then secondly, a discussion about a hypothetical transition from the.
No, I mean let's talk about them. We'll take them. We'll take them one at a time. Let's talk about Julian here first.
That's fine. I was going to summarize, but okay. We'll do
well,
that later.
No. Let's keep some.
Some mystery to the magic. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, do you want to start with Assange, or
let's chat?
Okay. So, I think, came to find out. Okay. The reason why this is so critically important to me is because I used to be in the military as an officer, and I actually attended Officer Intel School in San Angelo, Texas, this big building with no windows and secret security clearances and all that stuff. And this was going on about 2003, 2004. And if you remember, we were just starting to get balls deep in Iraq. And so I got to see on the daily, the military has an internet that's at a secret level and one that's like at a top secret level, but it's an internet. You get a browser and there's like Yahoo. It's basically news, and they basically want you to keep up to date as an intel officer as the comings and goings of especially whatever theater you're looking to be operating in. And so they'll have, hey, look at this happen, headline, click here for this, click here for this, click here for this, and it was quite often video footage, the actual video footage of exactly what we just did that you would never, ever, 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 ever see on the mainstream news. Like, I was shocked that they would just let 21, 22, 23-year-olds free access to this information. It was such a controversial times. You know, people were getting their heads chopped off on camera, on the internet. We were rolling into Fallujah, a year after that. I mean, it was such a crazy time. And here they are. We got, allies over here. We're claiming to be able to abide by our typical American ethics and rules of war and Geneva-type standards and all this. And so day after day after day after day, I got to watch these videos of, probably, if you want to call them bad guys getting blown up, but innocent people getting blown up. And not just on video, but what was worse were just your regular text reports. And so that didn't sit well with me. And it was, I almost completed the entire year before they figured out by hearing me talk and asking me questions that, I wasn't down with all this. I know it's a little bit of a side story, but this is just the reason why it's so important to me. They let me out. I didn't have to resign my commission. It was an honorable discharge. I don't have to get into any kind of trouble for it whatsoever. They just said, we hear you. It might be best if we just part company. And I was like, thank God. All right. So I've got all this in the back of my mind, and I was like...
So having a conscience is about as effective as bedwetting.
Oh, yeah. It's not welcome there. But see, when I joined it, 9/11 happened like 8 months before I commissioned, so I never saw that coming. And I would have never got in if I would have known that we would have been committing all these horrible war atrocities that I won't get into. But, yeah. So, I mean, I'm just saying that's a big reason why this type of topic is so important to me. So I got out. All right. So then, fast forward some, Snowden comes out, Julian Assange comes out, and I know the type of shit. I know a part of what he's got. And there were so many times I saw videos where I was like, oh my God, if this was on the mainstream news, the public would fucking freak out. If the public knew we had a military base here where no one knows where we have one, not only would our public freak out, the public from that country would freak out because they don't know it was a bunch of crazy shit.
I see.
So I knew had an idea of part of what Assange had, and I just felt like this kind of kindred spirit to him because I wanted to get it out. Boy, I would have loved to have a Rubik's Cube that I could have tossed past a guard. Back then a 3.5-inch floppy. I would have loved to get some of that shit out. If I would have had my way, for sure I would have got that shit out. But of course, you know all the rules. You know they can track anything. I wasn't gonna fucking risk a damn thing. Because it's i.e. Chelsea Manning, right? That's what he did. So Assange comes out and he releases all this information. And, of course, it does all this kinds of embarrassment and damage to the United States. And I don't think most people have even really fully digested the kind of guts it took for him to do that and the kind of damaging materials that it took to do that. My humble opinion is that even for the average American who, for the most part, doesn't give a shit about most of life outside of their own bubble, even if the average American was exposed to really the totality of what he released, they would immediately go, fuck this war. Fuck this war. And I mean, think about it. The government is so afraid of the American public saying fuck this war that Cheney wouldn't even allow pictures of coffins wrapped in American flags being loaded onto a jet transport to come home. They wouldn't even allow the pictures of flag draped coffins because the public opinion they thought was so fragile on do we stay, do we go. Of course, they're making hand over fist type money, war profiteers on all the contracts, Halliburton, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, they don't want to lose any.
They don't
of their
right.
I mean, support. I guess you'd say
this all this last 18 years of conflict, combat operations, war, whatever word you want to call it, has nothing to do with winning. Has nothing to do with protecting American service members' lives. It has everything to do with making a shit ton of money for the people who have the power at the top and maintaining control of resources, and specifically making sure they don't get into the hands of our enemies.
Gotcha.
We're so powerful that we could have obliterated them Iraq War I style, but didn't. And one of the specific ways that we didn't were to we were aware of exactly how and when the enemy was being armed in all these insurgent battles in these urban centers, and we would allow it. We had troops there. We had the capabilities. We could have prevented them from getting all those arms, but the order came down from the top. You are not to engage. You don't need to know the reason. You're going to follow the goddamn order. No. Knowing that those arms get spread out into the area tomorrow, the next month, used against our own service members. Like, if you're just on the ground in army and going into Iraq, Afghanistan, you have no idea how fucked you are. And yet here you are going brainwashed. I'm serving my country. I'm going to get some medal. I'm going to get some status, maybe some pussy. I'm going to be tough guy. I got stories now. Oh, I hope I live. And, oh, my buddy died, and he died for a good cause. Oh, it's time to go home. So Julian Assange is like a hero to me. And it's just too bad that the public truly doesn't have an understanding and an appreciation of what it took for him to do that, the totality of the sacrifice he's made to this point, and just how damaging it would be.
All right.
To
the flip side of that coin.
What's that?
So your position is that he added. The opposite position is that he endangered because there's a presumption of secrecy. Mm-hmm. And that the secrets that need to be kept is judged by people who don't. I mean, you can't just look at a secret and know if that secret needs to be kept. You have to have a bigger umbrella view.
Sure.
Something may look like benign and mundane, but be pivotal.
Sure.
So who makes the decision? And of course. Well, see, I mean, I guess as people concerned with ethics, we don't have a lot of confidence in power structures, large power structures, and their decision-making ability and their ability to be ethical. But there are most people, who would say, well, with its flaws, it still needs to be there still needs to be something. And this is what we have.
So, yes, they would say, and do say, let me know if I understand what you're saying, right? Is that, hey, by releasing this is very Obama. Hey, by releasing this, you're putting American service members' lives at risk. Now,
maybe more than that. I mean, there's no judging what all the fallout would be.
right.
Okay.
Well, there is a way for them to know. And here's how it is. Like, let's say Assange, I can't remember the number. Let's say he released 1,100 pages worth of documents.
Okay.
Now, the military is going to, because he just publicly released it, so they can flip through that and digest it relatively very quickly and adapt. Now, like if they were, like, let's say some of that released files were standard combat operations and maneuvers, especially in response to threats. So if the enemy knows how you're going to respond to a threat, they can set up an ambush to, like, counter your counter.
Or to just fall just shy of some threshold or whatever it be.
Right.
Okay.
So the military, knowing that, it's very expensive and resource and time heavy to adapt. They don't want to do that.
Okay.
Okay. If they don't do that, then yeah, they could be putting their people at risk further. However, the U.S. government is so diabolical, it wouldn't surprise me if they knew that there could be an increased risk to, let's say, convoys.
Okay.
And they just simply fucking allowed it because, see, they can't make a shit ton of money if we go in there and completely kick their ass. They need the conflict, and further, the more people who come home in body bags, if your son comes home in a body bag, you are a statist for life, and so is the rest of the family. You get what I'm saying?
Okay.
No one wants to go down with the flag, down with this tyranny of this domestic terrorism.
He died
if
for
your
nothing.
son died, exactly.
He had to die for something.
You're exactly. I will not have my son's death be in vain.
Okay.
I don't want to feel that discomfort. Hence, fuck your ethics and your logic. I'm a Republican or a
Generally.
Democrat.
Yeah.
So they like that.
Okay.
They don't mind that at all.
Okay.
It strengthens the military as well.
I get you about those effects.
The military's a
But-
fighting spirit, they say.
But the point is that there are people who certainly defer to even bad specialists because there's no one else to defer to.
What do you mean
Other
by
than-
specialists?
So okay. So there's the decision about what is properly a secret
Mm-hmm.
can't be taken on by anybody of normal in the normal world because we wouldn't have enough overview. We wouldn't have enough insight.
What is properly a secret? What do you
The decision of yea nay, properly secret. If some,
Like
any given thing,
Okay.
the weight of my hat. I can't determine if that's properly a secret or not properly a secret even.
There will be a commander tasked with the responsibility of making exactly that determination.
Uh-huh.
And they'll be high up enough, and,
There's
it
a
just
system.
flows down from there.
And there's a system
Yeah.
by which those decisions are made.
Classification.
And there's a system by which the determination, of something can be go ahead. They can declare a whole subject as being, secret, or they can declare that information getting out about certain topics needs to be quelled, stopped. There's a system, right, wrong, or indifferent.
Cool.
There is a system. All right, and we can't even figure out if it's right, wrong, or indifferent. Is my point. We don't have the information by
we
which
never
to
see
determine.
that.
So it's an easy argument to make to say there is nobody in normal worlds, in normal society,
Uh-huh.
that can determine the rightness or wrongness of what Julian did, because there's nobody in a normal.
Incomplete information.
There's nobody who has the information to determine whether page 847, paragraph 2 was important or
Right.
not.
The rightness or wrongness. In what context?
Okay, so
to me,
obviously,
it's all-
ethics comes into play. It's an ethical wasteland because it's been
Right.
stripped of any ethical context so much that you're done.
I hear you on that.
Now, since all the ethics is we're talking about wrong versus wrong, but even in the sense of consequentialism, like, okay, sorry,
Well, all the viewers might be like, huh? Not all of them,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
some of them. We don't
Okay.
want some of them to
So
be
in
like,
the
huh?
sense of I'm worried about the consequences of things, and the right person as close as we can get to the right person making decisions. Who's the right person making decisions? No one can. And so, there's this structure of people, high up, blah, blah, blahs, whose official job title includes making decisions about this topic. And that was taken away from them, right or wrong. That was overridden by Julian's actions.
So I guess that decision maker would just have to make different decisions.
We're already past. Okay, so the decision we're talking about are those how many pages that were released.
Let's say there's 1,100 pages released.
And you're skipping past that question and saying, what next?
Which question?
Whether or not that information, quote unquote, should be released.
Oh, okay, here's the difference. I think it all should be released.
Okay, how would I know whether your decision on that topic mattered or didn't matter, was right, wrong, or different?
There would be no way.
It is your decision. I get that's what you're advocating. That part's a given.
There wouldn't be a way for you to know because of all the fuzzy land you described. But what I'm saying, I guess my stance on it, and I'm kind of tossing the ethical right or wrong out the window.
Because again, it's an ethical wasteland.
Because
there is no right decision left.
I'm throwing it out the window in the sense that I don't care how the United States cookie crumbles. I don't give a shit.
Okay.
I'm just thinking big picture.
There are people who do care.
I understand. But
and in fact,
if they're in military uniforms,
major minority.
If they're in military uniforms, I don't care. And if they're most of society, state of society, I don't care.
And again, so we've eliminated most of everybody.
Yeah.
And we're talking about discussing how libertarians and voluntarists fall in this issue.
We could.
Well, that's kind of all that's left.
Okay. I mean, I can definitely let's transition to that right after this.
Okay.
So, what I want to finalize my point there is, to me, there's different like cones of perspective, like a magnifying glass. You can either zoom in real close or you can zoom out. It's a small picture, big picture, let's call it.
All right.
And in ways, I do that over years. So I much prefer to have everything released and let the consequences come from embarrassing the United States and its damn near limitless violence, hindered only by what the public does get to know and wouldn't tolerate, which is a very small amount, relatively. I'm down with letting it all out, even if it means this squad here got taken out, that squad there got taken out.
Okay.
Because in the big picture, in this grand theater of operations, I want this war to be over. This is a war of choice. So you over believe increasingly irrelevant resources.
So we need on this criteria of this war being over, you believe that the release was good for that goal. Okay, the release of this information. You're in luck because it did happen. It's like you're not advocating something that could happen. It did. So one way or another, that reality is going to be coming down the pike. Now, second question: should he be punished?
No, there should be a statue made of him. He should be a hero.
Now, that's your position. Why would that position? Why would other people share that position other than libertarians and voluntarists? Or actually, pretty much just voluntarists.
Most people, it's not human nature normally to give a fuck about the suffering of, let's just limit it to the obviously innocent bystanders of, drone warfare, helicopter gunships, bombs coming in from places unknown. What am I doing this thing? You can just tell me. The crowd isn't going to care. Most people aren't wired to give a fuck about that. They just care about they don't even really give a shit about their entire country.
All right. So you'll never. So there's a certain percentage of people who want him punished for whatever reasons, and you won't convince them. There's a certain percentage of people who agree with you for whatever reasons, and there's no need to change their mind. So there's an argument for what? For people who are trying to look at it from an ethical perspective.
That's See, Gary, I'm not trying to. If you have this goal or want to explore it, I'm down. But I don't. I have no hope.
Okay, so you just
I'm
wanted to.
changing.
You just wanted to. Okay, so all you wanted to do was check off your box. To communicate your opinion on it is.
Well, and the why.
Well,
Because
what's
the
the
why isn't out there. That's why I
The
want to
why
do this video.
of because it leads. No. The why of why you shouldn't be punished.
Well, okay, if we're going to
The
talk
why
about
of
that
the why of
specifically.
releasing it. You got your. The why of releasing it. Fair enough.
The why he shouldn't be punished.
You
is,
believe-
okay, so let me maybe it'll help to say it this way.
All right.
I see most of humanity to be on one of two teams, not exclusively, but most. And these two teams are one of them is violence, coercion, and fear,
Okay.
and the other one could be like honor, justice, and truth. You're either on one goddamn side or the other. Now,
Yeah.
most people survive best on the fear and violence and coercion bullshit. But some
Okay.
of us are wired on the honor and truth and justice side. And
Okay.
Assange is one of those people. And everything he was doing was just about exposing what is, exposing the truth.
But there
I
are
got
people
no
who
problem
say it
with
was
that coming out.
dishonorable to
Because
take that decision upon himself about secrecy versus non-secrecy of those pieces of information. That
I'm sure he
released.
was familiar with what he released. 1,100 pages is a big, huge book. It's not hard to get through.
But he's not aware of the context and the reason for keeping it secret and the reason for it not being public.
Under
already.
ideal circumstances,
Uh-huh.
let's steel man the shit out of this.
Try.
What could be the best possible reason for not releasing
I
information?
do not have any basis to answer that
Let's
question.
say American service people die.
It may be beyond that. It could easily be. That could be easily an understatement. I have no idea.
I mean, I can't imagine one being much worse than that.
Okay,
If we're gonna
I
steel man it.
agree that you can't imagine it.
I've got an active imagination, but I'm just trying to keep it within the realm of realistic and something that the viewer could relate to.
All right.
Even if that were to happen,
All right.
it is still worth releasing the information to the public in the big picture versus the small picture.
I agree that you have that opinion.
It sucks to be blue-pilled, brainwashed from the day you were born, and you get to 18 and hoorah, daddy and granddaddy did this, now it's my turn. That sucks. It sucks. It really does. And to die because of that.
Okay.
That sucks.
I mean, I have
But
my own reason.
You live
for-
by the sword. You fucking die by the sword. Everyone's responsible to figure out their childhood shit by the time they can become an adult. No matter how brainwashed you were. You're
No.
talking to a guy who was raised and exists because of Joseph Smith.
Keep in
Everyone's
mind-
responsible for that. And if you can't figure it out and you die, that's on you. It's not on Julian Assange or released information. Go ahead.
Keep in mind that for as little information as I have about this situation,
Yeah.
my default conclusion is the same as yours. My default position is don't punish him for these actions. He
I mean,
didn't
he's already-
rightly owe.
He's already
any
been punished
allegiance.
enough. Even if you wanted him punished,
Well-
7 years in exile, Jesus Christ. And now
Okay.
he's getting it worse.
But the point I'm making is I don't have the information to judge it.
what?
And no one will.
Okay,
that's
so-
that's a bit of the problem is we will never know if it's just to
Cool.
string them up, and if it's completely unjust to string up. We will never have a justice system that answers this question.
My point
And
on
because
this-
of that, I don't believe
I-
that he can ethically be punished.
I get what you're saying. My response is there's nothing that could be written down in those 1,100 documents or any of the other documents that exist that could justify punishing him. So my question is,
I don't know if that's true.
What-
Maybe.
well, my question is, can you even imagine anything that could be on released documents that would be worth punishing him?
I
over?
don't have the ability to know the consequence of some of the information being released.
So again, if you imagine the worst possible consequence, let's say,
Okay,
say a dirty bomb. A dirty bomb
the
goes
worst
off.
feasible consequence. he gets just tremendous numbers of people killed or endangered.
Okay.
Tremendous number of people's lives, innocent people.
What would you
because I don't care
consider a
about-
tremendous number?
I don't know. I have no scale. I don't have the ability to understand the difference between 100 people dying and 1,000 people dying. I really don't.
Okay.
I don't think anybody else does really either. I see them as tragedies.
Right.
And I don't have an ability to scale.
Right.
100 people died in front of me, or 1,000 people died in some towers,
I get it.
some states away. I'll actually consider the 100 people in front of me to be a bigger tragedy. That's how fucked up I am.
Well, no, I mean, I think that's kind of natural.
That's how fucked up we all are, is probably kind of the
10
point.
10 million people dying isn't probably as impactful as 100 in front of us.
Right,
Yeah, that's
right.
just
So
human.
I have no ability to scale properly. I already know.
I get you. So let me bounce this back off you then. When we went into Fallujah, 2003, tanks rolling through the streets. We're just pushing, and they're retreating, and now we've got this urban mess, and the civilian population is still there, and utilities are falling, and school came to an end, and hospitals, Jesus Christ, what's going on to treat the wounded. Now, the difference between 2003 and like now, and for all times after now, is the live streaming camera pointing out the window. So I'm just looking at war in a different context post-internet.
Okay.
A lot of people, friends I know, will only look to the future in context from the past, which has always, 99% of the time, that will work.
Okay.
Hey, you want to know what likely to happen in the future? Take a look at the past. I get that logic.
Right.
But when
Vietnam War, Korean War, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
Is how we should look at the
exactly.
war now.
But the internet, for me, I see a game changer. I see something, like I've said this before, the wheel, it's fire, it's the printing press. It is something revolutionary that changes everything. And people you can't, to me, in all things, you can no longer go, what happened before, okay, that'll happen again.
So what has changed? The accountability. People
Accountability,
support.
transparency, people like, and this is
So
such a
people
tiny
losing support for government action.
public perception.
Okay.
No more Dick Cheney hiding flag draped coffins.
And what Julian did was move that to a whole new level.
He moved the goalpost in a better direction. And I think it's inevitable, assuming that the grid stays up.
And there are people very upset about that and very much wanting him dead.
Of course they are. These people who are very much upset about that are scared to fucking death of the internet. The internet, and if the internet really fulfills its potential, it's the death of their power.
Okay.
It's the death of their. It's like the Game of Thrones.
One way or another, it's going to go because it's either the death of our freedom or the death of their power. It's one or the other in a big way. There's a high volatility.
I mean, if everything goes to shit, everything goes to shit, and everything I'm saying and everything I care about none of this matters anyway.
Right.
I'm just going on the assumption that it's going to get better.
Okay.
So we're going 4G, 5G, assuming the grid doesn't go down, assuming this massive solar flare doesn't come out and EMP the whole planet.
Okay.
All right, assuming none of this shit or some huge biological chemical thing breaks out. The internet brings. When you have that live streaming camera in the palm of your hands and it is instantly transmitted globally and there's nothing they can do about it, now, I mean, just look at the tiny example, the cops. Look how differently the cops act in front of people who have live streaming cameras versus before. It's a 180. I know this first fucking hand.
Very first hand,
It is 180 difference between when they do and when they don't. And it's the same thing when you got tanks rumbling down or whatever. The human population, no population has ever seen from the force that's being attacked by us.
Oh God!
Hamburger being splattered across their buildings,
or can you imagine
people turning into red mist? Children, babies broken in half, screaming for parents who will never wake up.
Can you imagine the idea? So anybody who wants to can easily find videos of cops going ape shit, just batshit crazy.
Oh yeah.
Batshit crazy there's always the guy who says, well, we didn't see what happened before the video. There's always that, but people have a hard time apologizing for something that is clearly an unethical, like cop behaving real badly. And
they're selling justice.
So the next step
delivering bullshit.
So the next step up is that they're going to start seeing their brave men and women of the military doing the same. Being vicious. Videos of military people being vicious.
Oh, we've seen that like Abu Ghraib. I mean,
to a level where we're at the outset. Again, the military videos is behind. It's impersonal, and it's behind the police videos, because the police videos we have up close and personal accounts of some cop putting his big face in somebody's window and being wrong, clearly wrong.
Well, when a judge, because of public pressure only, forces it to be released to the public, will we see that.
Okay.
But in the military, they will not. They'll put a camera on you, but it's not getting out.
Well, no. What I'm saying is, okay, so these cop videos aren't exactly wanted to be out. We're talking about videos taken by bystanders.
Right.
And granted, that's something that started slowly because as people had cameras pointed at cops, we started catching cops being bad.
I remember seeing a cop grab a cell phone and throw it across the lawn.
Right.
That was right before live streaming came out.
Right, because he could get away with it.
He could get away with it.
It turns out someone else was taping it, I guess, right?
Yeah, from across the street on a window.
Oops. So next up is not that I don't think the body cam footage of a military person will ever get anywhere because that's no Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah, they're not going to let anything get out. But
yeah,
here is a step that they will take.
But what about when the guy across the street, so to speak, in these countries that we don't think of as having cell phones, do have cell phones. Have recording devices, record this shit, and suddenly it's like, oh, by the way, here's your guys being all honorable, Now
I can see, I've put some thought on this. I could see militaries doing two things to combat this, because they can't have this. Because the world will be like, fuck you and your war, all kinds of international pressure.
Yeah. While you might have the flag-waving American going, well, they're our boys and we have to stand behind them, but you'll have the Europeans and you'll have the other countries going, yeah, you're kind of dicks.
Yeah, it could be something easy like that. So the two things I think they're going to do, one is they could easily set up some kind of disruption field, EMP style, ahead of advancing forces,
like macrovision anti-taping measures, like they do on movies. If you try to tape movies, it fucks with the video.
Now, that's why I'm so excited for enough satellites to get in orbit to where everyone's on satellite internet instead of cell phones and towers and utilities that can be bombed. Gotcha. Especially if they get put on encrypted frequencies, disruption resistant. I mean, because then you're like, oh, well, I got a Kim Jong-il. Who says fuck cell phones? Well, they still are and they still work. That's kind of the exciting part of that. Yeah. And the second point I was going to make is something they already started doing in France, which was extra spooky to me. So with the whole yellow vest thing going on,
remember that?
They know it's live streaming central, right? Everyone's live streaming from Yellow Vest land. So what they did was, especially at night, they just put their cops in total face covered, everything was covered costumes, riot gear that covered their face. Now you don't give a fuck if someone's live streaming you. And I watch this. Cops seeing cameras, not giving a fuck. A couple dudes in a restaurant, they're just beating the shit out of them until they run away.
Hey, they really should have just went all out and did white hoods. It would have it would have brought it full circle because that anonymity and the brutality of that.
Yeah. So they cover their identity to get
so I can see, so black costumes and bright white lights to fuck with the auto leveling and all that kind of stuff. To where it can just never kind of get a hold on a video.
Right.
So you have people in jet black and bright lights, pinpoints everywhere, and it's impossible to get an image.
So this is the type of things that they're likely to do, and others to combat this. But to me, big picture, it's accountability, transparency, and instantaneous exposure. To me, is far better at ending war than more people, bigger guns, just duking it out.
So
it's a different world post-internet.
Well, and with that goal, then,
Plus anonymous cryptocurrency use, I mean, come on.
So, they're trying their best to figure out what to do about that, too.
Yeah. So,
free flow of information, free flow of resources, God, they still don't know what to do with themselves.
And again, because they bottleneck necessary flow of goods and services and needs, and then control that bottleneck, and they'd find out what are human beings addicted to. Things like food and water and sex and certain forms of recreation and jobs and licenses. Okay, those are everybody's coercion buttons. We're just got to control those, and we got them.
Can you imagine?
We got them.
If you didn't get a license for being a libertarian, there'd be no more libertarians. If you couldn't get a driver's license, if it's be a libertarian and walk, well, hey, it's a privilege.
Yeah.
And if, it's a privilege and they decided not to give you that privilege because you're disrupting things.
Right.
It's it's sometimes where you worry about it going. I mean, you
Yeah.
have the whole civil credit score in China and stuff like that. I mean,
Oh,
I
social
predicted that.
scores
I
getting spooky.
was predicting that here.
There's an episode of Black Mirror about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is really what I want. This is a lot longer than I thought it would be, but this is just
Yeah.
what I wanted to get out about Assange. Was just, and if you haven't seen the movie Snowden, watch the movie before you really shoot me down.
Okay.
It'll explain a whole lot more of this, and it's based on verifiable facts. It's not some Hollywood thing they got real liberal with the events. And yeah, Julian Assange to me is a hero. I think he should be out and free, and we just happen to live under the evil empire, and he is an enemy of that state big time. One of the biggest, if not the biggest right now. And that's why Snowden had to go to Russia. Snowden get the exact same thing. He's like, fuck this, I guess I gotta live in Russia right now. And Russia will be like, thanks. The U.S. is our biggest enemy. You totally embarrass the shit out of them. We're going to let you live here for the rest of your life in relative comfort.
Every day you're here and comfortable
Yep.
is a slap in the face to them.
And an encouragement for someone else to do the same.